Alright, y'all, in this video we're making a UFC basketball team. We're not doing a full roster because that would take a long time. We'll do the starting five and then we'll have a 6-man coming off the bench. And maybe we'll do a part 2 depending on how this goes. So let's just get into it. Alright, at the point guard position we have Demetrius Johnson. High fight IQ. I feel like that would transfer over really well. I feel like he would be the locker room leader. I feel like he's a very easy guy to get along with. So I feel like he would lead the team. And I feel like he's just a very smart guy in general. So I feel that his IQ would make him a great point guard to where he would have a lot of assists and lead the team. Pretty much the captain. I'm thinking of him as the captain on the team. So yeah, at the point guard position we have Mighty Mouse. The shooting guard position I have Kevin Holland. He's 6'3". That's a good size for I guess a small shooting guard if we're playing small ball. He's liable to give you 45 to 70 points a game. He's a real scorer out there. He honestly, he reminds me of Lance Stevenson. He's somebody that's gonna, blow air into LeBron's ear, try to get under their skin, talk some junk. You know what I mean? Initially, I was thinking Kevin Garnett, but then, I thought of somebody else, and I was like, okay, he's Kevin Garnett. Maybe Kevin Holland is, Lance Stevenson. He's not to the Kevin Garnett level, which we'll get into later. But, I feel like Kevin Holland will be a good scorer. Minimum of 45 points, maximum 70. Can't go under, can't go over that. So, if we're playing small ball, which we are because Demetrius Johnson is our point guard and he's like 4'2". So, yeah, I feel like that's a good pick for our shooting guard position. Kevin Holland at the 2. At the 3, you got to go John Jones at the small forward position. He's 6'4". Again, kind of smaller than I would like at that position, but we're playing small ball here. He's the GOAT. Some people's GOAT, a majority of people's GOAT. He's the most well-rounded on the team. He may, he will get into some problems off the court and may get fined by the NBA. But that's okay because he's the GOAT, and when you have the GOAT on your team, maybe taking a couple fines and getting some backlash off the court is okay. You can deal with that as long as you have the GOAT on your team. I feel like obviously he's the LeBron of the team. He's the GOAT, like I've said already. Our only problem will be just making sure that he's clean. Because if the NBA finds out he's popping perks or whatever, that's going to be a problem. And our team again might be fined. So we're playing small ball here, but we have 2 GOATs, and a guy that can, put up 45 to 70 points. So far, I think the 3 guys that we've picked, I think those are lottery picks if we're being honest. At the 4, we're going Jamal Hill, 6'4", right? Again, we're playing small ball here. He reminds me of DeMarcus Cousins, and like I said before, he reminds me of Kevin Garnett. This is the guy that reminds me of Kevin Garnett and DeMarcus Cousins. Specifically DeMarcus Cousins, though. I feel like they have the same build. They're kind of, overweight a little bit. Just going to talk junk. You know what I mean? Just going to be a bully in the paint. And we need a guy like that on this team. You give him the ball in the paint. Yeah, he's a little undersized. But he's gonna get in there. You know what I'm saying? And give you a solid 10 points, 15 maybe, 10 boards, double. You know what I'm saying? So you need a guy like that on the team. And again, just gonna talk junk, make it dirty down there. You know what I mean? So at the 4, the power forward position. Again, I feel like this is a lottery pick. I feel like this is a good pick. Him and Kevin Holland have been in the actual Fighters League playing basketball with Daniel Cormier and Bilal Muhammad. If that's his name, I don't know. So I feel like we're making good picks here. I'm not gonna lie. Number 4 at the power forward position, we're going DeMarcus Cousins, Jamal Hill. At the center position, You know, when you think that all we're doing is playing small ball, I go out there and I make a pick like this. Steven Struve, hopefully I'm saying his name right. 7 foot, big fella. You know, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think he's a lottery pick. I do think he's a round two pick. You know, you draft him. You know, when a Taco Bell commercial is on, just like Jokic, just like his prototype. You know, I feel like he's a Jokic type of guy. You know what I'm saying? Has the similar build, isn't the most athletic, clearly. Um, you know, but uh, he's a guy that beats Stipe. You know what I mean? He's a guy that can do those big things, and if he can do that, you know, if that can transfer over to the court, you know, I don't know what the possibilities are. If he's beating Stipe in MMA, what can he do on the court for us? You know what I'm saying? So I think this is a big pick. Um, literally, 7 foot. You know, when the rest of the guys are really small in comparison to, you know, the average height of the position. I feel like this is a great pick for us. Um, and an underrated pick. You know, maybe you could have went Francis Ngannou or someone like that. Uh, Alexander Volkov. You know, maybe those are picks in the future video. But I'm going Steven right here. I'm going Steven for this one. So again, a great pick. I feel like out of the 6 man position, easy, easy. We're going Marab. Marab for the 6 man, right? He's content with being the 6 man. You know, he was content with his homie Aljamain Sterling being champion. You know, while they were both in the same division, so I feel that he would be content. You know, coming off the bench for Mighty Mouse. And not complaining too much about not getting those big minutes, you know what I mean? But when he does get in there, you know, he's a guy that's not going to get tired. You know he's not going to get tired. You know, he's the type of guy that's going to dive on the floor for a loose ball. You know what I'm saying? And we need somebody like that on the court. You know, we need somebody like that on the team in general. You know, so I feel like, again, you know, GM of the year, manager of the year. You know, I feel like that's a great pick for us. You know, he's not a selfish player. You know, letting his homie be champion and him sit back until his homie lost and then he went for the belt. You know, so I feel like, you know, he's gonna be selfless out there and pass the ball, give the ball up when there's all these stars that's on the team. You know, like Kevin Holland and Jamal Hill. Um, so yeah, you know, I think that's a good pick. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like this is a good team, and I feel like, you know, the bench player that we did pick. You know, when we could have went for actual guys with basketball experience. Um, yeah, I feel like Marab is that guy for us. So yeah, this is the team. So yeah, I feel like that's a good team. All right, y'all. So that is my UFC basketball team, starting 5 and 6 man. If you enjoyed, you know, like, subscribe, do whatever. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. It was a fun video to make. If you want a part 2, let me know in the comments or whatever. If you want your name to be at the end of my videos, consider going to the description and going to my Patreon, you know, and becoming a member. You get videos like these early. You get bonus content. You get extended cut fighter interviews when I do interview a fighter, and much more. So again, if you want your name here, consider supporting the channel and joining the Patreon, becoming a member there. So again, I really do appreciate you for watching, and yeah, hold it down. Be safe.